Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Sorry for the change of setup. I'm currently away traveling, so not on my normal desk. But wanted to get you this update anyway. So the global semiconductor shortage is still an issue. So we've just had the Munich Motor Show where Ford, VW and Daimler, all of their key bosses addressed the semiconductor issue, and it's not looking good. I mean, there's a lot of complaints about the fact that these companies are still struggling, supply chain factories still seem to be closed, and there's no clear end in sight. They've also quoted that a lack of silicon is also a problem. So let's look at kind of what each of those left as their remarks. So VW, the owner there, the CEO, there, Herbert Diess, he said he's lost market share in China. That's the main place he's been affected. And it's actually meant, and that's directly related to the chip shortage. So he's saying he's now lost market share, VW has, Europe's biggest car manufacturer in China, simply due to the global chip shortage. It's a bit of a tongue twister, chip shortage. Now, he said he expected the semiconductor issue to be resolved by summer holidays, but clearly that's not been the case. And he's saying that he can't calculate when this is going to end. There's no end in sight almost. Now, he also mentioned how Malaysia has been hit by COVID, and that's meant factories have been closed, and that's just having even more of a compounded effect on this shortage. Now, he also mentioned that, he expects obviously the problem to resolve itself as companies start to control transmission of the virus. But as we know, that's a difficult thing, particularly for some of the lesser developed, economically developed countries. It may take quite a while, well into next year. Now, he's also said, look, whilst it will dissipate as C-19 started to be controlled, this issue can still continue to linger. And he cites the fact that Internet of Things is rapidly growing and more demand for chips is causing this problem. I mean, everything from your kettles, now you're getting electric kettles, you can find toothbrushes which need it, all kinds of things, PS5s, everything is demanding these chips. Now, Ford, their CEO, Gunnar Herman, expects it to continue to 2024. So he's saying he's put a 2024 date for this chip issue to be settled. And he also says that he feels like this has been exacerbated due to the rotation across to EVs. Now, to put this into perspective, a Ford Focus, your typical internal combustion engine Ford Focus, will utilize 300 semiconductor chips, right? Now, the new electric Ford uses 3,000 chips. So to put that in perspective, we've got a 10x there. So if you imagine all this rotation across to EVs, the demand for chips are going to 10x. What's to say the supply chain is adapting to that? Are we adapting? There needs to be a step change in this supply chain, otherwise we're going to face this issue. And then Ford's Gunnar Herman continued to say, look, it's not just the chips. We're actually facing it. We heard silicon from VW, but Ford is saying they're also having a problem with lithium, plastics, steels. They're really feeling the tightening of this noose around their neck, and they're really struggling. And then he said, look, it's inevitable that car prices will go up due to cost push inflation. But he says his order book is still looking good. He's calling demand extremely strong. That's how he's referred to it, which is quite interesting. It shows us that there's a bit of pent-up demand in the space for autos. And finally, Daimler, their CEO, Ola Källenius hopes Q3 is actually the trough. They're hoping that we're through the worst of it and Q4 should show some signs of recovery back towards some level of normality. But again, he even caveats himself and says that we're not sure. He's got to caveat it and say we've got to be prepared for the uncertain situation. We don't know when this is going to resolve itself. Now, UK, the car industry, the number of cars produced plummeted in July to its lowest reading since 1956. To put that into perspective, that's how bad we're in this right now. 1956. That's not looking good. And finally, the last note we have here is that German car supplier, they provide various parts for cars, Bosch. They've said that the global semiconductor supply chain is not fit for purpose. And that's quite a damning statement. As we've just said, we're getting this rotation across to Internet of Things. More and more things are demanding chips. The rotation across to electric vehicles, resulting in a 10x increase in requirements for chips. and yet the supply chain has not moved. It's still the same archaic supply chain we've been living off over the last 10, 15 years. And we really do need to see a step change and private and public sector investment into the space to prevent the kind of bottlenecks and increases in prices, which are going to cause longer term inflation. And that's going to have investors worried. It's going to cause problems for consumers. And we need a plan to get out of this. It's not going to resolve itself. I remember, I might make a separate video on this, but to now, semiconductors are almost like oil of the 1970s, and how oil created the shortages, and then you had to create OPEC to control the supply. It may be that we need a similar setup here with semiconductors. I mean, the world is running on these chips, and there's going to be a fight for these chips, no different to oil. And those with power can abuse supply chains with geopolitical issues as well. This could cause a lot of tension, a lot of conflict. And it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, but definitely something needs to be done, because this is not looking good for longer term inflation. For those that are thinking it's transitory, the comments here from some of these big bosses of these major car companies are saying this looks like it's going to linger. It doesn't look like there's a way out just yet. So there you go, guys. That's an update on the global semiconductor shortage. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.